They say the real betrayal doesn't start with a kiss. It starts with a lie you're told to accept. I didn't see it at first. Or maybe, deep down, I didn't want to. My name is Emily, and I'm 33 years old. For the past 7 years, I've been married to a man I once believed was my best friend, my partner, my person, Noah. He's 34 now. For the longest time, we were that couple. You know the one, silly inside jokes, lazy Sundays, shared Spotify playlists. We had built a life I thought was solid, until the cracks started whispering. The first fracture didn't come from Noah himself. It came from a woman named Tessa. Tessa was Noah's best friend. A phrase that burned like acid the more I heard it. They'd known each other since high school, even dated briefly, apparently, but it didn't work out. According to them, they realized they were better as friends. Soulmates without the romance, Noah used to joke. The first time I met her, I knew I was being evaluated. Her eyes ran up and down me like I was a dress on sale she didn't intend to buy. Then she smiled, that kind of smile you see on soap operas, the one that screams, "I'm being polite, but I don't like you." She said, "It's so great that Noah finally found someone." I was really starting to worry I'd have to marry him myself. She laughed. Noah laughed. I smiled. But inside, something told me this wasn't just an awkward joke. As time went on, I learned that Tessa was the kind of woman who thrived on being seen. She was charming in that way that made everyone lean in, and cruel in that way only I seemed to notice. Every story she told painted Noah and her as some legendary duo lost in forests together, saving each other on camping trips, sneaking out of school dances. One night, at dinner with Noah's friends, she launched into another one of her remember when tales, this time about how Noah had a massive crush on her in high school. "He used to write me poems," she giggled, swirling her wine. "Honestly, it was adorable. He tries so hard to impress me." Noah squirmed. I clenched my jaw. No one noticed. Another time, Christmas at his mother's house, Tessa brought a homemade pie that, she made sure to mention, was Noah's favorite. From scratch, she beamed. "Remember when I first made this for you after the hike, Noah? I had baked cookies." She looked at them and said, "That's sweet, Emily. I'm sure your cookies are lovely." That same condescending tone. Sweet. Harmless. Just enough to make me feel like a child playing house. But what hurt most wasn't her. It was Noah. He never saw it. Or worse, he pretended not to. Every time I brought it up, it turned into an argument. I was being paranoid, or jealous, or the classic. Tessa's like family. She means no harm. Except she did. She meant every word. But the real poison came from someone else entirely. Noah's mother, Diane. I used to admire Diane. She was elegant, respected, and carried herself like she ran a royal court. I thought we'd grow close, two women who loved the same man in different ways. Instead, she decided there was only room for one queen. And I wasn't it. She adored Tessa. Invited her to family dinners without telling me. Called her practically a daughter. And worst of all, compared us constantly, always subtly, always under the guise of kindness. "Oh, Tessa's roast chicken is just divine, isn't it, Noah?" she'd say. "You must get the recipe, Emily." Once, after I spent the entire weekend preparing a family meal, Diane asked Tessa if she'd ever considered writing a cookbook. But the moment that solidified everything for me, the moment I realized I was never going to be enough for them, happened when Diane looked me in the eyes, smiled sweetly, and said, "You and Tessa are so different. She has such a natural grace, don't you think?" That was it. That was the moment the switch flipped. I stopped trying to be accepted. I stopped trying to be cool with Tessa. And I started watching more closely. What I saw unraveled me. When I found out I was pregnant, everything else faded into the background. All the bitterness, the passive-aggressive remarks, the awkward dinners, none of it mattered. I was going to be a mother. I imagined Noah beside me, holding my hand in the delivery room, whispering that he was proud of me. I pictured the three of us, our little family, wrapped in the warm glow of something new. But fantasy has a cruel way of dying. I still remember the night my water broke. It was late. The sky outside looked like a sheet of bruised steel. I called Noah, once, twice, 5 times. Nothing. Straight to voicemail. Panic started to bloom in my chest. I was alone. Contractions growing stronger. I called my best friend, Tara, who dropped everything and rushed me to the hospital. She held my hand while I screamed and cried and brought our son into the world. His name is Caleb. 7 pounds, 10 ounces. A perfect little boy. Noah showed up 5 hours later. Not 5 minutes. Not 1 hour. 5. When he walked into the room, I expected, I don't know, panic, shame, regret. But he looked calm, like he'd just stepped out of a coffee shop. Where the hell were you? I asked, shaking. His face, and I'll never forget this, actually looked guilty. Tessa had a breakdown, he said. Her marriage ended. She called me crying. I couldn't leave her like that. Time stopped. I had just delivered our child. Alone. And he had chosen her. That was the first time I saw red. Truly saw it. It took everything in me not to scream. Instead, I said, cold and clear, you will not see Caleb until you promise to cut her off. Permanently. No more visits. No more texts. Nothing. He blinked. You're being hormonal. You're acting like a brat. I stood up, despite the stitches and pain, and said, then you can walk out of this room and never come back. We fought. For hours. Voices raised. Nurses stepped in to calm us down. But eventually, he broke. He promised. He swore on our son's life that he'd never see or speak to Tessa again. I made him promise that if his parents wanted to keep seeing her, fine, but I would not tolerate her name being spoken in my presence. No more family dinners with her. No more surprise visits. No more pretending. And for a while, he kept his word. At least, I thought he did. Those early months of Caleb's life were fragile, beautiful, and broken. I tried to forgive. Tried to stitch over the wound. Diane, of course, wasn't thrilled. She was cold. Stiff. Tessa's like a daughter to me, she once said through a clenched smile. But she backed off, at least on the surface. Things started to feel peaceful. Not perfect, but manageable. Until Caleb turned 6. At first, it seemed harmless. I had started working longer shifts, and Diane, my mother-in-law, offered to help with Caleb. Just a few afternoons a week, she said, voice all honey and sympathy. Let me take some weight off your shoulders, dear. I was exhausted. And honestly, grateful. I didn't have many options, and Caleb had always loved spending time with his grandmother. Or so I thought. But then the change began. Subtle. Creeping. The first time it happened, I didn't even register it. I came home from work and opened the front door, expecting Caleb to run into my arms like he always used to. That was our thing. His little feet pounding across the hallway, that giggle, that shout of mommy. But that night, he didn't even look up from the TV. I tried brushing it off. Kids grow. They go through phases. But then it became a pattern. Caleb started pulling away. No more bedtime snuggles. No more stories. He didn't want me to read to him anymore. Said, Grandma tells better ones. He started correcting me, parroting lines that sounded eerily like Diane's. Grandma says you should cook more real food. Grandma says you don't have enough time for me. Grandma makes better pancakes. I laughed the first few times. Nervous laughs. The kind you force out when your heart starts to crack. But it kept happening. And then it got worse. He started throwing tantrums. Huge ones. Screaming when I said no to a toy. Screaming that Grandma would have bought it. Screaming that I was mean. And one night, he didn't want to come home. I want to live with Grandma, he sobbed. She's nicer. She listens. It gutted me. I confronted Diane. Sat across from her on her floral living room sofa with my hands clenched so tight my nails dug into my skin. I told her what Caleb had been saying, what he'd been repeating, and how his behavior was changing. She just smiled. Oh, sweetie, you know how kids are. They say things. Don't take it personally. But I did. I took every single word personally. Because this wasn't just a child's tantrum, this was a slow poisoning. A rewiring. Someone was feeding my son stories that made me the villain in my own home. And deep down, I knew who that someone was. Still, I tried. God, I tried. I spent every free moment with Caleb, baking cookies, building forts, going to the park. I even watched Cars 2 with him 4 times in 1 week. I tried to win him back like I was courting a lover. But no matter what I did, Diane's shadow loomed larger. Then one night, everything changed. I was tucking Caleb in, brushing his hair back from his forehead, whispering, I love you, when he looked at me with those big, serious eyes and said, I miss my new mommy. My heart stopped. What new mommy, baby? I asked gently. He blinked. Then he clammed up, rolled over, and pulled the blanket over his head. The next day, while he was at school, I did something I'm not proud of. I found his diary. Just a cheap blue spiral notebook covered in superhero stickers. I shouldn't have read it. I know that. But I wasn't thinking like a mother anymore. I was thinking like a woman on the edge of breaking. What I found in that notebook shattered whatever was left of my illusion. I love Alicia. She gives me candy. Daddy says we have to keep it a secret or Mommy will get mad. But I think she's nice. I think she's my new mom. Alicia. Tessa. She was back, and they had hidden it from me. I don't remember breathing when I finished reading Caleb's diary. My hands trembled as I flipped through each page, drawings of stick figures at the park, smiley faces next to the name, Alicia, and the same phrase written over and over like a spell. Daddy says we can't tell Mommy. That name, Alicia. I had banished her. I had drawn a line in the sand, made it crystal clear. She was never to be part of our lives again. And yet, she was there, right under my nose, stealing moments with my son, slipping into the cracks of my family like mold in the walls. And they'd all let it happen. Noah, Diane, my own child was being taught to lie to me. I waited for Noah to come home that night. I sat at the kitchen table like a statue, the diary clutched in my lap, my thoughts swinging wildly between heartbreak and fury. When he walked in, I didn't say a word. I simply slid the diary across the table. He looked down, read one line, then froze. What is this? He asked, trying to play dumb. You tell me, I said. My voice sounded strange, too steady. He started mumbling, trying to come up with a half-baked excuse. Maybe Caleb misunderstood. I mean, it's not what you think. I stood up so fast the chair screeched backward. Did she see him or not? He finally dropped the act. It was just once. Wrong answer. I walked to the bedroom, grabbed the iPad he had left on the dresser, and unlocked it. He hadn't even bothered to log out of his messages. I know it wasn't once, I said quietly. I read everything. His face paled. You went through my stuff? I went through your lies. And God, were there so many. Messages stretching back years. He had never stopped talking to her, even after swearing on our son's life, even after watching me fall apart. The texts were romantic, intimate, sometimes desperate. They weren't just friends, they had been emotionally entangled the entire time we were trying to fix our marriage. But what hurt the most? The way he spoke about me, calling me controlling, telling Alicia he felt trapped, complaining about our fights, our silence, our home, as if it had driven him to sneak around, as if he was the victim in all of this. I confronted him with every word, every message, every screenshot, and I watched something change in his eyes. The mask finally slipped. He wasn't sorry. He was only sorry he got caught. Maybe I shouldn't have lied, he said. But Alicia makes Caleb happy. You don't understand, she's good with him. She's maternal. Maternal. It felt like a slap. I was in labor, alone, I said, shaking. Do you remember that? Do you remember what I told you that day? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I told him to leave. Right there. No yelling. No threats. Just leave. He tried to beg. Tried to cry. But I didn't want apologies. I wanted distance. He left. Went to Diane's. And that's when she called. Diane. Defensive, sharp, outraged. You overreacted, she said. Alicia was just being kind. This is ridiculous, Emily. I hung up. I didn't want to hear it. Not from her. Not from anyone who stood on the sidelines while my family was dismantled piece by piece. The next day, Noah came back, thinking I'd cooled down. I hadn't. I'm done, I told him. I want a separation. We'll work out the custody and legal stuff through lawyers. He cried, begged again, said all the words. I love you. I didn't mean to hurt you. We can fix this. But they were just sounds. Empty. The day Caleb was born, he chose Alicia. And now, all these years later, he had done it again, this time behind my back, with our son in the middle. That wasn't love. That was betrayal on repeat. And I wasn't going to let it play out one more time. After Noah left, the silence in the house was suffocating. Caleb was staying at my sister's for the weekend, and I used the time to pack away the remains of what used to be our life. Photographs from better times, vacations, anniversaries, baby showers, all dropped into a cardboard box marked past. But the ache in my chest wouldn't leave. There was one more thread I couldn't ignore. His iPad. Still sitting there, untouched since the night I opened it. A digital time capsule. And something told me I hadn't seen the worst of it. So I went deeper. I read everything. Messages going back years. Conversations that happened while I was pregnant. While I was nursing Caleb. While I was planning birthday parties and crying in therapy, trying to hold us together. Noah had never stopped loving Alicia. He hadn't even tried. He told her he missed her. That he wished he had chosen differently. That sometimes he dreamed of running away and starting over. And she fed it. She told him he deserved better. She called our marriage a phase. She said she still remembered the way he used to make her laugh when they were kids. The worst message? I think Caleb feels like mine. I know it sounds crazy, but when he smiles at me, it feels like the universe is correcting a mistake. Correcting a mistake. I slammed the iPad shut. There it was. No more ambiguity. No more benefit of the doubt. They had already rewritten the story. In their minds, I was the outsider, the obstacle, the mistake. I didn't even confront him this time. I called the movers, packed the rest of his things, sent them to Diane's house. And when he called, crying, of course, I let it go to voicemail. Later that day, he showed up at the door. Emily, please, don't do this. I love you. I love Caleb. I messed up, but I can fix this. I opened the door just enough to meet his eyes. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just said, you already fixed it, Noah. You chose her. Again and again. Now you get to live with that choice. Then I closed the door. That was the last time I saw him in our house. 1 month later, the divorce proceedings have started. Custody arrangements are being negotiated. My lawyer is brilliant and thorough. Noah's been quiet, probably realizing just how badly he miscalculated. Caleb's still adjusting. Some nights he cries. Some nights he asks for his dad. I don't demonize Noah, not to Caleb. I tell him the truth in pieces small enough for a child's heart to carry. Sometimes people who love each other have to live in different places, I say. But mommy loves you more than anything, and that will never change. I hold him when he cries. I let him feel it all, because that's what real mothers do. I've started therapy again, this time for myself. Not to save a marriage. Not to fix anyone else. Just to heal. To understand how I lost myself in someone else's story and how I'm finally writing my own. And you know what? It doesn't feel like the end anymore. It feels like the beginning. So, to the women out there who've ever been made to feel small, who've been told they're overreacting, who've been gaslit and sidelined and lied to while being called hormonal, I see you. And to the men who think emotional cheating isn't cheating, try looking into your child's eyes when they ask why mommy doesn't smile anymore. That's the cost of betrayal. And I've paid it in full. But I'm done paying now. I'm taking my peace back, one truth at a time.